fell one time, then I fell again. I fell a third time, can't get away from the sin. I keep falling, then I come back to you, crawling, asking forgive me now, I'm ballin', knowing that I let you down, appalling. I don't wanna jeopardize my calling. When I hear your voice no more, I'm halting. I just wanna live in the world you're revolving. I am so imperfect, I'm getting involved in these flesh-tied friends, the blind consulting, pulling me away from the world and revolting. Asking for forgiveness is probably insulting, but you keep taking me back and you're vaulting. Give me chances. You keep giving me chances. You give me chances. You just keep giving me chances. King. Royalty, stand up, brand up, fam up, hand out, no way, hands up, know what, name that, it's mine, claim that, it's time, message, we shine, above all, the decline, the darkness cannot last, the shadow of my past, before I gain knowledge of heritage, I have the bloodline that I share, most powerful out here, the mover of mountains is who I am touting, the richest among us is who I'm the son of, from sundown to sun up, that's how I the come up, position is just mine, the favor in due time, can't have it, man, you lying, the powerless, you trying, enemy beneath me, there's nothing to teach me, the people receive me, cause my God complete me, and my God does keep me, and my God they free me, and my God redeem me, and my God relieve me, I'm chasing the million, crown me, I am winning my position, God's giving, God's in it, God's showing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff, and I am here again to talk to different people in different parts of the world, different corners, to see what we all have in common and how we are all on this path of humanity, this path of life together. Today I have someone really special, and we're going to be talking a lot about trauma, about your past, your childhood, and I think it's going to be a great, useful conversation. I want to introduce to some of you, and some of you may know him, may not, Michael Anthony. What's up, brother?
What is up, my friend? Not much, just out here living my life.
Good to know. We're all trying these days. We
all
are
we
all
do,
trying. It's a lot. It is a lot. So you're from Portland, the Portland area.
No, I'm from Indianapolis originally.
Indianapolis. Okay.
Yeah, I moved out here amongst living in the world in 12 different countries pretty recently, about 5 years ago. So
okay. What's the pandemic life like out there on that side of the world?
You know what, we escaped down to Mexico for a while earlier in the late last year to kind of just get away from it, right? In Portland, it's totally locked down. I mean, no gyms, no eating in restaurants, masks everywhere. I mean, it's awful. And this is a city in which industry is driven through restaurant and travel culture, and it's hard out here, man. It's real hard. Plus, we had all the protests, Black Lives Matter movement, being out on the streets. You know, we had a crazy year out in this city.
Yeah, Portland was crazy this year. It was the most Portland we ever heard on the news on the East Coast, I think, in my life.
Yeah, I believe it. Like and my place wasn't that far from it, and you know, me and my friends, partner, family, like we're all out here protesting, hitting these streets every day, and like dealing with the ramifications of just being present. And it was a hard summer, but man, we had to be out there. We had to do it.
That's good stuff. Hey, so I want to jump really right into you, because I think that, talking about you will create context for the conversation, for people who don't, people who have never heard you, never heard anything like you. I was reading about you, trauma survivor, trauma warrior, trauma mentor. Tell us about your life and your journey,
and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. The universe brought me to where I am today. Call it God, spirit, universe, luck, whatever it is. It just took this moment of me like shutting up and listening and going forward into that thing. I grew up in Indianapolis, as I mentioned. My mother was a drug addict and alcoholic. She cut my right index finger off when I was 4 years old. My
Wow.
my stepfather, the man she married when I was six, super abusive. Like the dude you pray never ends up being a part of your family. Lo and
Right.
behold, got that to deal with. Never actually met my real father. By the time that I was 10, we were homeless so often. Like we were in poverty. We were the poorest people in the poorest neighborhood in Indianapolis. And, while growing up in the Mormon church. So you have all this abuse happen while you're also in the church and dealing with these things. And by the time that I'm 12, my grandmother adopts me. Now, I'm biracial, I'm black and white, and my grandma's an old racist white lady from little town in Tennessee you never heard of. So now
Wow.
insert this crazy juxtaposition of turning into a teen while also dealing with racism in your own home and insert identity crisis, right?
Wow.
I
Yeah.
start getting high at 12 years old. By the time I'm
That's
13,
crazy.
I'm drinking, I'm stealing cars, I'm running with guns, I'm breaking into houses, I'm assaulting people. I get expelled out of high school, but then I get like this last chance program. I kind of transform my life there for a little bit. Next thing you know, captain of the wrestling team, on the football team, straight A's, right? A lot of things in my life had changed. And then I kind of went back to old behaviors. Next thing you know, not graduating high school on time. Now, all this is before I'm even, 18 years old. Fast forward a few years, I figured out within myself this idea that the cure for poverty and everything that was going on in my life was money. And so
Money.
I
Yeah.
decided I was going to chase financial independence
Wow.
legally, right? Something I'd never done to that point, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I got into corporate America, did really well, really young. But the downside of that is there's a ramification of success when you haven't done the process of discovering who you are. And that's
Yeah.
that it exacerbated all the parts of me that were really awful, right? More drugs, more women, more clothes, more cars, more chaos in my life. And by the time I was 26, I found myself staring back at 350 pounds, smoking 2 packs a day, drinking day and night,
Wow.
and on the other side of a suicide attempt, thinking about what is happening in my life. And it was in this moment as I'm staring in this mirror, looking at myself in the reflection, saying, this is a promise that you made you would not break. You would not
Right.
live your life in accordance with what people told you would be, a loser, not good enough, whatever that thing is. What I didn't understand in that given moment that later would come is that, man, I had no self esteem, Shawn. I had no self love. I had no self belief. I was chasing money as this idea of this thing that made me a person, not recognizing that it doesn't matter, that all the other things are vastly more important. And that was a decade ago, right? And
Wow.
today what I do is I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I'm an author, I'm a speaker. I've spoken, taught my workshop in 12 different countries around the world and a ton of cities. I have people that follow me globally. And the only thing that I care about, man, at the end of the day is how do I empower people through my story, which is still to this day the craziest story I've ever heard in my life, even though it's not a competition. How do
Right.
I
Right.
empower people to step into this place to believe in themselves, create change through being uncomfortable, become the hero of their own story, and get out of the vortex? And that's led
Wow.
me to where I am sitting here talking to you today.
Wow. What is your process like? So what was your process to change your mind before you became this, the person that you are now? Like, what was the process? Like how hard was it? Like, what did you have to endure? Like, what was your journey like to get from where you were to wholeness?
Yeah, I don't. Here's what's really interesting. It was always there, right? Because I remember being a little kid having these moments and being like, "I'm gonna be great. I'm gonna prove all of these people wrong." Now, look, a part of it is I have a huge, huge, huge chip on my shoulder, man. Like I
Right.
am so much about let me show you what I can do. I love when
Right.
people tell me what I can't do because then I go and
Right.
do it anyway.
Yeah.
And that's not always a good thing, but it's my thing, right? It works
Right.
for me. The thing that was most important in this whole process is I'd come to the realization that I always had this inside of me, but I was terrified of my own potential. As
Mm.
so many people are, we're so scared of the idea that maybe we might actually get the thing that we want in our lives.
Wow.
And what
Yeah.
happened is, in this process, when I made this declaration to myself, 26 years old, standing in front of that mirror, I literally said, today is the day that everything changes. And
Mm.
from that, man, I just started going hard every single day. Therapy, group therapy, men's therapy. I went to AA, NA, SA. I started doing CBT and EMDR and every modality of therapy you could imagine. I started
Mm.
journaling, meditating. I would literally be the only dude in a room full of PhDs learning about the human brain so I could understand. Right?
Mm.
I'm a civilian in this situation, and
Wow.
spending hundreds of thousands of dollars healing myself, my body, all that wealth I accumulated, like it
Mm-hmm.
went to curing myself. I had made myself sick, man.
Mm.
And so it was a personal growth journey. It was learning about myself. And ultimately, the most important thing out of all that, none of that matters, right? None of that matters without this very first thing. And that thing was the declaration that I made that
Mm-hmm.
I was going to do whatever it took to have the life that I was willing to have. And that process was incredibly hard, incredibly tedious, unbelievably difficult. And even today, like every single day, I am still on the healing journey, because the
Right.
thing that I discovered about this is there's no day when this is over.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's first of all, that's incredible, because there are a lot of people that really need to hear that particular, there are a lot of people struggling that really need to hear that particular bit of advice. So when you started, and when you started in your first of all, how old is your book? Like, when did your book come out?
My book came out December 31st, 2019.
Okay, so it came out about a year ago.
Yeah.
And with your, when you started the journey that you're on now, what is it that, how do people come to you? Like, what type of people do you get to be able to go through this, the process?
Yeah, and first it's funny because I wrote that book because it was the book that I needed, right?
Mm.
And I think that's how
Yeah.
most people write a book. They go, "This is
Yeah.
the book that I needed."
Your
And
own sort of therapy.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
but here's the thing, it's not about me,
Right.
right? The
Right.
preface is, right, I lay it down so you understand what you're getting into, but
Sure.
that book is practical, right? It is
Right.
built to be a guide, it is a journal, it is a reflection.
Mm.
And what happened was, about 4 years ago, almost five now at this point, I was just posting stuff online that I thought was really special. I'd
Right.
learned this about the mental health industry. I'd learned this about self growth. I'd learned whatever that thing was, and I just put it out. And
Mm-hmm.
slowly people would be like, man, I really resonate with this. I understand this. This happened to me. That happened to me. You
Yeah.
understand this.
Yeah.
And then it started turning into, that thing you wrote changed my life. And then it
Wow.
turned into, that thing that you're doing is saving my life. I didn't kill
Mm.
myself because you did that thing. Now, look, that's heavy, man. I didn't sign up for that, right?
Yeah,
But
that's
then I
very
think about
heavy.
this, like, I didn't sign up to be the spokesperson for childhood trauma, right? It's hard. It's uncomfortable. It is it is the elephant in the room of mental health, especially in America. And the people who come to me, especially when we get into coaching and one-on-one and small group and stuff like that, they're
Mm-hmm.
people who recognize what I recognized. And that was that there was something within them that they were terrified to own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. How do we help you own that part of you that can be great? And dude, I
Right.
come from poverty. I come from the inner city. I come from places where you're either going to ball or go to jail. My
Right.
friends, I have so many friends who have been murdered. I've been in
Right.
handcuffs. I've run from the cops. I've been in
Mm.
shootout, like all of these things. And it's like, part of me always felt like there was something greater. And I think
Mm.
that is a part of all of us. And
Yeah.
the people
Yeah.
who I find are most successful in life are the ones who are willing to step into it. And this
Yeah.
is while also understanding the key is that success is self-defined.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really spectacular. I've worked with athletes and celebrities. I've worked with moms and dads. I've worked with teachers and IT people and architects and people in London and Singapore and all over the world. And the one thing all these people have in common is that they've made a choice.
Mm-hmm. What is, when someone comes to work with you? What is the goal of what you do? Like, when someone says, "Hey, I need help." what kind of goal do you set up? How do you know when what you're doing is successful?
Yeah, I don't set goals for anyone, right?
Hmm.
Everyone who comes into this, they know. Like, Shawn, man, you know what you're supposed to be doing with your life. You
Yeah.
know that thing that drives you. You know what it is that you're supposed to move towards. Great. Now, how do we do that? What we do
Right.
is we game plan. We game plan. We create accountability. We create a pathway. We
Mm.
create the tools. We create the it's 7 o'clock in the morning. Are you going to get up because you promised yourself you were going to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, right?
Wow.
And that's what it's about, is how do you take this idea of who you want to be and become that? Because
Right.
many of us who come from abusive backgrounds, they don't have fathers, they don't have mothers, they don't have mentors. They have
Yeah.
a world that is just constantly a foot on their back and mud in their face. And what I do is I show them that that's not true.
Hmm.
And it's different for everyone, because, like, realistically, some people want healthy relationships with themselves, some with others, some want career, like whatever that thing is. And so much of this, really, at the end of the day, it's about mindset. Like,
Right.
can we craft the person that you know you're capable of being through pushing you into this place where you stop coddling yourself and making excuses?
Mm. Someone coming from a background like yours, and what is a first step to someone coming from a background like yours, or maybe not quite like yours, but let's just say abusive as a child, abuse, excuse me, as a child, and they're dealing with that particular trauma, and getting to Michael Anthony maybe a little far. What is their steps like? What kind of steps would you first tell someone to begin to take to begin to cope or deal with the life that they have in front of them?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. It's acknowledgement, right?
Yeah.
We try so desperately to hide from the truth of who we are and what we've experienced, because it hurts and
Yeah.
it's hard and it's difficult and it's unfair and it sucks, right?
Hmm.
But reality is, until you're willing to stand in front of that dragon, sword out, shield up, like, let's go, that thing's going to consume you all of the
Right.
time. One
Yeah.
of the best things that happens is people acknowledge it and they go, man, yeah, bad stuff happened to me. I need to do something. I
Yeah.
need to change this thing that is a part of me, because it's consuming me. It's destroying my life, my relationship, my self love, my career, my children, my
Mm.
health, all of it. Man, I was impacted by it so greatly. I was so disconnected from who I was. I had
Right.
no empathy. I didn't cry for 15 years. I couldn't show
Mm.
up because I just had no idea who I was. But with
Mm.
an acknowledgement, you get to start to take power, right? And you
Yeah.
hear that word and it becomes this like faux pas thing. People are like, power, power, power. But the truth about it is, you start to be able to step into this idea of who you are,
Yeah.
because you've made a choice and you've made a decision that says, I understand that this happened to me, but I'm not going to allow it to control my life.
Mm. You say so many things that are like, I have like so so many directions one could go. What's up? So I can only imagine what your life is like. What is your life like on a regular basis? Like, what do you do? What is it that, like, what does your day to day look like? It
I
seems
love
like
that
you're
question.
super busy. And do you play music? It's a guitar in your background.
Yeah, man. Here's the thing. I do exactly what I want to do every single day of my life.
Perfect.
And the reason why is because I spent so much time not, right? I
Yeah.
spent so much
Yeah.
time pretending to be this person. And look, that's not to say I'm some rich guy running around Ferraris. I don't even own a car, man. Like, my life is very much about, can I wake up, put my feet on the ground and love myself? Can I
Yeah.
do the things here, quick, high level routine. First thing, every single morning, I drink water, I meditate, I stretch, I journal, I read. Every single morning, no questions asked, no matter what, because that is the baseline for whether or not my day is going to be successful. And then
Mm.
from there, it's working. I do podcasts all day. I write all day. I make content all day. I coach all day. I mentor all day. I own another company. Like, I have a million things going on right now. And to me, like, work isn't work, because I'm so driven by this idea that I can have the life that I want to have. And my goals are 30 years away, Shawn. Like it's gonna be
Sure.
30 years before I reach my goals. And so yeah,
Right.
sometimes I play guitar and sometimes I watch boxing and sometimes I do Muay Thai and I go to the gym and I read. Like those things make me happy and fulfilled. But ultimately it is every day. I always ask people like this: if you could live your dream life, would you be willing to do it? And look, I'm not there yet. It's 30 years away. But the willing part is this every single day, the
Right.
working, the building, the creating, the changing, the growing.
You take me down so many levels. I mean, so so many different areas. Every time you answer a question, I'm like, "Ooh, I can ask this one next." Oh, wait, no, this one. What's the most important thing that what's the most important bit of advice that you can give someone? Let's say complete stranger, you don't know if they struggled or not like you just, what's the most important advice that you find just important in life? The most important thing that you find important in life that you say, if I can teach everybody this is the thing.
Yeah, it's that you're not alone. Like
Yeah.
here's the thing: we feel so ostracized and isolated, and now it's worse than ever, right? Like we know this. COVID is like ruining life. We don't even know the impact that this is going to have on mental health care in 3 to 5 years. I'm
Nope.
terrified for what that means, right? But here's the reality, Shawn. Even though like my little brothers and I, we grew up in that same home. We all suffered abuse. Like I felt alone every single day of my childhood,
Yeah.
every single day of my teens, most of my 20s. I felt alone. I felt invisible. I felt like
Yeah.
nobody understood me. Nobody got me. I felt like I had to be in this position to be hidden so that I wouldn't get hurt. And the number one thing that I would tell anyone is that you're not alone. I swear to God, there's like 8 billion people on planet Earth. People
Right.
have suffered. Like, I'm sorry.
Right.
Humans suck. We are a terrible species. We do awful things to each other. And as just as much as we have suffered together, we have healed together, we have grown together, we have changed together. We have done all of these things. And there's someone right now who's sitting at home and they're just like, I'm so alone. Sometimes it's your responsibility to reach out to your community and say, hey guys, this is the situation I'm in, right? Not necessarily looking for a handout, because that's the other part of it. People are super weary about asking for help because it's
Yeah.
shame ridden in America. And the strongest thing you'll ever do is ask for help. That's when
Yeah.
everything in my life changed. I literally said, I can't do this alone. And
Right.
yet that notion was, you're by yourself, figure it out, man up. Oh my God, thank God I changed my understanding of what that means. And now get in this position of like understanding that asking for help and recognizing that there's community, and no matter what you are going for, is one of the most important things, probably the most important thing in life.
To speak on community a little bit, you said earlier, being in Portland and the all of the Black Lives Matter stuff, which isn't typically a question I ask people, but just because I find it interesting here in this context, in this framework, um, what part of it were you doing in Portland? Were you just like going out there, or like what part of it were you playing, and how did you sort of work into it?
Yeah, a few ways. Race and identity has been a part of my life forever. I've always
Yeah.
either not been white enough for the black kids, or excuse me, too black for the white kids, too white for the black kids, somewhere in
Yeah.
between. That's a burden for many people who are biracial, right? And being in this position of, I don't want to say authority or power because that's not true, but having a voice, I thought to myself, I need to leverage this voice in doing something very powerful. And so I actually, the very first thing I did, because I recognized, like, dude, in Indy, I'd march the streets. In
Right.
New York, I'd march the streets. And like, I've done this. Like, we've been doing this. You've been doing this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm tired of it, right? And so I created this petition on change.org called George's Law. And next thing you know, that thing got picked up in Newsweek and all over these news channels. And it was a petition to make, how do I say this? I'm trying to say this without cursing. It was a petition to make facilities and groups like the Ku Klux Klan illegal. Right. I get
Right.
fired up about this, man. I hate those. I don't want to say hate. That's really rude. I strongly dislike those people because
Right.
they're uneducated and they've made poor decisions. And look, I made this thing and it got almost 300,000 signatures, which is incredible and beautiful.
That's
And then I was
super.
out in the streets constantly, man, just being there, being a part of it, being present, not to speak, not to be on a pedestal, but to be there and go,
Just be there.
we're in this. We're
Yeah,
in solidarity.
I did the same. Phew, I think I started the first time I ever went to the streets to actually, I think it was 14 maybe 2014. It's Tamir Rice. It was that era, and then Freddie Gray, that era, and then after you after you start, you just it's like you feel like the job's not done, so you got to keep being a part of it. So I think that's super cool. Like I said, when I do this show, I often find similarities between me. It doesn't matter, what your background is, what corner of the world you live in. It doesn't really matter. We all seem to find similarities, and sometimes things we find important. Sometimes, work, life, that type of thing. So, one thing I wanted to ask you about, which was just kind of off kilter, is the search for happiness. A lot of people are doing things out of places of pain or hurt in their life, and they're searching for what they happiness, like whatever that means to a person. So they do it with things that aren't healthy. How can one? How do I frame this question without it being crazy? How can one really? How do you find yourself dealing with people that come to you and say, "I just want to be happy"?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, I get that all the time, right? But that's not real, right?
Right.
You can't always be happy. You're going to be
Right.
sad. You're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be whatever that thing is, good
Right.
and bad, and in between. And the thing about happiness, particularly because you asked the question, is that I think it's very much in line with the thought that I have about success. It's a self-defined narrative. And the reason why people are unhappy is because they don't have goals. They haven't written down a definition of what these words mean to them, and they expect magically that one day they're going to feel differently about the world when they've been only doing life the same way, right?
Right.
Definition of insanity. And I think about this idea of happiness for myself. Man, I'm happy as long as I get up and I go for it, right? As long as I
Right.
do something, as long as I'm moving towards this idea of the life that I want to have, I'm good, right? Can I
Right.
be a good partner, friend, business owner, associate, family member, brother? Can I be better than I used to be? Can every single day I just get it a little bit more? And that's my happiness, because I know I'm showing up for myself. And even every single day, like I look at all of my goals are written on this blackboard over here because I want to see them. I want to read them every day and know that I'm moving towards the things that I want. You want to be happy in life? Define it. Stop waiting for it to be magical, like a fairy is going to fly in and sprinkle happy dust on you, because it's not going to happen.
What about people who live in sadness, or let's not say sadness, you know, who hate their jobs, but
Quit.
but what about the people who hate their jobs and feel stuck, like feel like they can't?
Yeah, man. Stuck is bull. I caught myself. Stuck is this place that people get to, coming back to where I was at 26. That is a place that you get to when you are afraid of the idea that you could have the life that you want to have. Because here's the thing that happens: you get comfortable in the pain. You get comfortable in the idea of, my job is terrible, my wife is cheating on me, but I stay with her anyway because I don't know what else to do. I'm overweight, I'm smoking 2 packs a day. We know what to do. We all know what to do, Shawn. The difference is that, are you going to do it? That's the only difference between people who are successful in life and people who aren't, is what are you willing to do to have the life that you want to have? If you're stuck, well, then get unstuck. Do something about it. Do something. Like, seriously, man, think about this, Shawn. Statistically, I should be dead or in jail only based off my zip code.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else to do with the things that I've done, or
Right.
the idea you could get hit by a car in traffic, or that you could have a stroke right now, or any of those. I should
Right.
be dead or in jail only because of the neighborhood that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I could leverage that all day long, and I did
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. And I'm not trying to be preachy here. I'm only just trying to lay it out like this. There's always going to be something in your way. There's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be a boundary. There's always going to be a hurdle. There's always going to be someone saying, Shawn, you're not good enough. You're not capable enough. You're not strong enough. And you have a choice to make. Are you going to listen, or are you going to move forward knowing that there's potential?
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's easy to be stuck in a job and be like, I blame my job. It's your
Right.
fault. Who goes to work every day? I blame my relationship. It's your fault. Who's in the relationship? We have to start taking some acknowledgement in that sometimes it's actually our fault. Like,
Right.
sorry, hate to break it to you, your life might be bad right now because of the bad choices you're making.
That's so. Which you always bring me somewhere else. But in thinking of relationships that suck, right? I think we're finding out that what we want. Like for me, I grew up in like completely in polar opposite than you, right? I grew up in the freaking Cosby house, right? Right. But sometimes, and not to say this about my parents because it's not true, but sometimes I grow up and I see this thing not knowing how stuck my parents may have been or codependent that my parents may have been. But I grew up, romanticizing their relationship, and then I get into I get into a relationship where I'm doing the same thing they were doing because I didn't know that they were doing it when I was growing up, and so I'm so codependent on a relationship that this is that I feel stuck in this particular relationship because I'm codependent on it. How do I begin to break that? How would one begin to break that particular cycle? Not to say anything negative about my parents because that's not what I meant.
Yeah, I feel you. That's a really hard question, and I've got friends who are awesome relationship coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is so much of this segment of life and reality, and I think about what I've learned just from the stuff that they put out, and like me myself having been in a very codependent relationship that turned volatile, not in a physical way, but an emotionally abusive way, and looking at and understanding like I was seeking my worth and validation from another human being.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you always hear this thing about airplanes, like put your mask on first.
Right.
And if you don't, then you're always wanting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I found myself in this place of wanting. I need validation from someone. Please make me feel whole.
Mm-hmm.
That's so much of what and I'm only going to speak to mine because it's different for everyone. But you
Sure.
have to ask yourself, like, am I actually whole? Starting with me first. Like,
Right.
am I showing up for myself first? I took a tremendous amount of time to be alone and
Mm-hmm.
isolated within myself to build myself up. Because
Mm-hmm.
what I recognize is all the way back to 16 years old, every relationship I was ever in was codependent. Every relationship I was ever in was about, can I make myself feel good by being with this person, when in reality, man, that's a short fuse. That's going to blow up real fast. We know
Mm-hmm.
those relationships. We know we've all to some extent been in that. And what happens is, can you build yourself up to the point where you're okay with who you are first?
Yeah.
Right? Intrinsically, can you
Mm-hmm.
build yourself to this place where you put your feet on the ground and you love you in the morning no matter what? People
Right.
think about this idea that they're going to find
Yeah.
love and satiation in life from external sources. But what do you do when that light goes out? Who's going to
Right.
power you? Where is that
Mm-hmm.
energy going to come from when they leave, or when you lose the job, or
Right.
when you don't have the book, or whatever that thing is? Can you force yourself in this place of growth?
Mm. Yeah, you make so much. There's so much depth to everything that you every question that I'm asking. It's like I can sit here and just do this all night, and you probably can
I'm just getting
unfortunately,
started, brother.
fortunately, there's limited time here. But I want to ask you a question I ask every single person that comes on, and I always find it interesting to find out the answer to this question from different people in different walks of life, and to see whose answer is similar and whose answer is completely left field. Never thought you would say that one. Um, if there was one thing about the world or people or however you want to think about it that you could just wave a magic wand or get a touch from the Lord or whatever to change, what would it be?
Self-belief. Because think about it like this. I think that innately the worst parts of humanity come from the ignorance of not trusting who they are, right? And what happens with that? Well, then we turn into this group mentality, right? And suddenly now we're bullying not only as individuals, but together, and we're forcing our will on others. And the spiral goes on and on and on. I mean, from Trump to Hitler to Genghis Khan to whomever. Imagine if those guys loved themselves a little bit more. You can't look at me and tell me that those people are not miserable within their own skin. And so I'd give everybody self-belief, no matter what you come from, no matter where you've been, no matter what has happened to you. Can you believe in yourself? And that's hard. Like that's the hardest thing you'll ever do, is learning that thing, right? And if I could wave that magic wand, like, let's go, the world would be a very different place.
Wow. So, tell me about um, tell me about Think Unbroken and exactly what it is. And I got the website there, but tell me about it. Tell me about your organization.
Yeah, Think Unbroken started one night, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm laying in bed, and recognizing that so often in the world, people look at us and they go, "Oh, you're broken." Right? There's something about you that's not up to status quo. You must be defective. And me remembering being called broken, like as a little kid all the time, as a teenager in my 20s, right? And like always having this thought of, I'm not broken. I just need compassion. I need hugs. I need someone to understand me. I need someone to like recognize that I've been through pain. And Think Unbroken is about, how do I take all these tools and understandings that I've garnered over the course of the last 10 years and give them to you? How do I take my, call it secret sauce for lack of a better term, lay it out on the table and say, here you go. Are you willing to step into it? And it's about mindset. It's about the practical understandings of the tools that we have to move through trauma. It's about understanding the science of the brain and why cortisol is a monster in your youth when you're growing up in toxic stress, and why once you learn how to co-regulate your amygdala and hippocampus, that you actually can control everything that happens in your body, right? And it's science based, it's practice based, it's mindset based. It's so much about, look, if I were to sum it up, man, like really it's about the stuff we should have been taught when we were kids, but we weren't. And so
Right.
now we've been in this life trying to figure out how to navigate trauma, feeling like we're on our own all the time, and understanding like, once I step into this, everything can be different. My favorite, Shawn, my literal favorite day is when a client calls me, we have our call, we go through coaching, and they go, I don't need to do this anymore. I
Wow.
get it now. My life is different. Something has changed, right? Just the other day, one of my clients called me, hasn't smoked, hasn't drank, hasn't yelled at his girlfriend in over a year. Man, that's amazing. I haven't talked to him in 7 months. That's amazing, right? Because it's about mindset and understanding that life can be different.
One of the things, okay, this is gonna be my last question, I promise. But I keep thinking of, the more you talk, the more I think about something else that I could ask, that I want to hear your answer to. But one of the things that, when you talk about brokenness and you talk about dealing with trauma, I think we as men don't deal with trauma as, and you mentioned before that you went for a very long time without crying. How how do you get past the sort of toxic masculinity built into our culture in order to get into the depth of pain that men have or trauma that men have, because it's not always as as overt as that you could just see. So how can you get past? How do you get past that with men?
Yeah, that's really the hardest thing that we have to face in society, because I remember growing up and playing sports, and boys don't cry, put some dirt on it, stop acting like a baby, the other word, like thinking about this thing about life being, you have to man up. And that, like, the idea of man up is so incredibly toxic. Like,
Yeah.
when you
Yes.
really think about it, because growing up, what was manning up? Buying a cool car, having sex with
Right.
all the women, lying, making money, being the cool dude in the room. When I'd argue the coolest thing about manning up is like being okay with who you are every day, being
Right.
honest, being fair, doing the things that fulfill you, not being in this group of peers who try to pull you down. Like, I look at my friends for the majority of my life, because I haven't made it to the threshold to call it the minority yet,
Right.
and looking at them and being like, none of my friends ever stopped me and said, hey, you know what, you're being an idiot, right?
Right.
They encouraged it, because societally, go have sex with all the girls, go drink all the beers, go get in all the fights, go drive really fast in your car like a moron, right? Nobody said don't do that. And
Right.
now, here's what's really fascinating about that. And while it is unfortunate, I recognize it's a part of growth. None of those people are my friends anymore,
Right.
right? Because I
Right.
changed. And as I changed, that's uncomfortable. That's hard. It's really difficult when you now have a reflection of the possibility. And I hope that one day they come around. I miss those people. I don't miss the things that we did together. And I think
Yeah.
the only way you work through it, to answer your question, is it's ingrained in us. It is embedded in us. It is
Yeah.
poor programming. And the only way that you do that is you have to reinstall. You have to stop being rude to your women. You have to stop, like, and look, I listen to rap music. I'll never be like, don't listen to rap music, right? But the thing is, like, what are you willing to take from that and ingrain into your life, right?
Right.
What is it that you are willing to do to stand up for yourself? I mean, like, the truth about this is sometimes this idea of manning up is you have to stand up for yourself to these other men you're around and say, I don't accept this.
Right. 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 Man, listen, I'm going to literally stop myself from asking you questions, because I don't want this thing to be an hour and a half long. But man, I truly appreciate you coming on tonight. I definitely appreciate your time.
So welcome.
Yeah. So I've got your website there. Anything else you want to share with contact methods, Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on all the social media at Michael Unbroken. You can see behind me, I got the book Think Unbroken. It's on Amazon. It's on that website. It's in the libraries, which is amazing to me. I didn't graduate high school on time. I got a book in a library. So yeah, please check me out. Follow. I love to chat with people. I love to talk about this stuff, man.
Man, this is Michael Anthony, and his book is Think Unbroken, and his website is Think Unbroken. His organization is Think Unbroken. So, so I appreciate you coming on. This has been the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff. I appreciate you guys for hanging with us. Hope you got something out of this. Hope it's been really, really valuable to you. We will see you next Tuesday, 7:30, same time. Thanks so much. Peace out. 20 years old, I started one of the first multi-artist gospel rap labels in the country. Who listens to that, they said. That has no future is what they told me. That's a dead end, they kept repeating. That's a career killer, they warned me. What they didn't understand is that a pioneer can see past what you think is possible and has the endurance to push it through. And my new media television platform is that pioneer's mind at work once again. I give the unheard a voice. I give the marginalized a stage. And I give the unfortunate a good hand. This is Christian media like you've never seen it before. Because this is Shawn Riff-Raff Studios.
I'm a Christian with $100 million vision. Can nobody box me and say that's a contradiction? Goal driven, God just blessed me with the ambition. Look up when the rest, he the definition. Been through hell, but the fire couldn't crisp them. Shut down the mouths of anybody, you dismissed them. 20 years gospel rap broke all the traditions. Cause from a teenager, I was on the same mission. So when he running God business, he got clothing, plus he got the boss with him. He got a squad with him, real no frauds with him. He run into the light cause he is an optimist. When everybody in the music biz narcissists, I will not rap a thing but my consciousness. Forever always a kingdom rap activist. It took a break for a minute, let's get back to this. Yeah. Been a soul winner, you cannot box me. Control center, you cannot box me. Flow with it, you cannot box me while I glow with it. You cannot box me, cause I'm stepping out.